Hello, everyone.
Hi, Josh. How are you? I'm going to step away for just a moment. I will be back in 2 minutes.
Sounds good.
Hey, Josh. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey there, Mark.
Hey, Chris.
Howdy, Michael. Hey, Josh.
Hi, Chris.
Aviv and Megan. Oh, hey.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Megan. Hey, Aviv.
Hi.
Hey, Chris, thanks for resending.
Yeah, so are you on that list, Scott? Otherwise, I'll send a
Yeah,
note over.
I don't know why my computer keeps dropping off the link.
Yeah, that's
I should have
interesting.
probably paid attention earlier than 5 minutes before the meeting started.
No, it's fine. It's easy to get it over. We just, yeah, normally this reminder that I just sent you, Megan sends out middle of the morning of the day of the meeting.
Yeah, for some reason I did not get it.
All right. So yeah, I'll send a note to
Are we
Megan.
gonna-
Megan's online, but I'll send a note to her and put your address on it.
Sure. Yep.
Who all is here?
Hey, Virgil. Ellis.
Yeah, the review. Looks like I'm on twice somehow.
Yeah, same here.
I'm on twice. I don't know how that's supposed to.
Scott's the other one.
Yeah, I left and came back, and yeah, interesting. I can't find how I've got two, other than the screen here, how I have two versions of Zoom open on my computer. But if I close one, both close.
Hey, I think we're doing great having two of you, Chris. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Chris, did you share your link with someone?
Yes, with Scott.
Okay,
I
the other you is Scott. The links are individual to each person.
Gotcha. All righty.
Yeah, I can rename the other you to Scott.
All righty. And check to see that he's getting those notices. He didn't say he got that notice when you sent it out mid-morning.
Hi, Grace, Brian, Scott.
2, 3.
Hey, everybody.
Hello,
Hey,
Brian.
Brian.
Hey,
Encoder.
Brian, you've lost another administrator over there.
Just a little one. Details.
What's that, Scott?
I said you've lost another administrator over there. The Dean of Humanities and Sciences.
Oh, yeah.
Just that little school over there, a little college. Yeah, no one likes to be have their budget slashed over and over again.
It's
can appreciate-
discouraging.
It really is. It's a tough one. All right, 12:02. We're gonna get started here. All right. I'm calling to order the Thursday, March 11th, 2021, a meeting of the Missoula Energy and Climate Team, our regular monthly meeting. This meeting runs from noon to 2 and is available for streaming on our YouTube and web stream system, as well as Spectrum Channel 190. All right, roll call. Man, we're getting a big roll call. We better kind of go through this a little more in detail. Maybe Megan, can you help us out with this?
And call roll, absolutely.
Thanks.
Chris,
Here.
Jeremy,
Present.
Trevor, Michael,
Here.
Brian.
Here.
Scott,
Here,
David. Doesn't look like it. Josh,
Here.
Virgil,
Here.
Ellis,
Present.
Grace,
Here.
Aviv,
Here.
Amber.
So Aviva, do you come up under the term encoder?
That is my second computer.
Oh, okay.
I use the technical language, so hopefully we don't confuse them with the person, but that's me too.
Oh, there it is. All right, sounds good. All right, thank you for doing that. All right, first item up is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I'm going to pull mine up here on the screen.
Move, we approve.
I have one small comment up on the top. This is for Megan under alternates absent, Amber Cheryl at non-voting, and then Lee Hands. So I think Amber is a voting member, and I'm not sure who Lee Hands is.
Lee Hands is Kirsten, the senior deputy city clerk, and that's a second account she made for like testing purposes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, that was my only comment. So we had a move to approve. Do we have a second? How about one of our new team members jumping in and seconding the move to approve the minutes?
Second.
All right, thank you, Grace. Moved and seconded. I think I'm just calling for unanimous consent. If anybody opposes, say nay. Otherwise, it is approved, and we're moving on. Please also note for the roll call, Megan, that Trevor Bell has joined us.
Thank you.
All right, first up, our introductions for our youth team members. So kind of like we did not too long ago with Trevor and David, we'll probably do a similar thing, sort of go round robin and introduce ourselves, a little bit about, what we do or how we came to be on the team or what our goals are, or whatever you'd like to chat. I'm going to sort of do it looking at my screen. I'm just going to sort of follow around. So actually it starts with Aviv.
All right. My name is Aviv. I am one of the youth members now, and I've gotten interested in climate change in probably the past year. Kind of got my eyes opened just this year while learning about climate change in science class, and my teacher really dug deep, and we learned about how and why climate change is caused. And since then, it's just kind of opened my eyes, and I've really been interested in trying to reverse the effects of climate change. I've grown up in a house where we've always recycled, composted. My dad installed solar panels on our house since before I was born. And so I think my family is very aware. So I wanted to help make a change.
Thanks, Aviv. I'm up next on my little screen. My name's Chris Rowe. I think just a little bit of background on Tuesday from 4 to 5. Michael and I did an initial training with the 4 new youth team members on a little background about how boards work and how this board works. We'll probably do some additional trainings as well that we're setting up. So I've had the opportunity to introduce myself to the new team members. So I'm going to pass it on to Josh.
Welcome aboard, new team members. We're really excited to have you. You don't know how much we've talked about this, and look forward to you coming. I'm a local attorney, a University of Montana Law School graduate, former journalist before that, but I moved back to Missoula in 2017 after serving as an attorney in the Air Force for a few years and moving around the country and world. And this is one of the first boards I saw an opportunity to join. I can't think of another cause I'd rather be involved in at a local level, because I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I'm really worried about the world we're going to leave them. So I'm currently a full-time special victims counsel, and I represent assault victims throughout the Western United States who are affiliated with the military. So that's me. And again, we're really thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, and again, thank you very much for working on the special victims issues. Really important for everybody. Next up is Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Flesh, and just like Josh and Chris, I want to extend a warm welcome to Aviv, Virgil, Ellis, and Grace. It's absolutely wonderful to have you on our team. I have the pleasure of living in Missoula and working for a company remotely back in Boston, which is wonderful because I get to enjoy the Missoula lifestyle and climate and everything that I love about Missoula. Energy and climate is near and dear to my heart, and as I think Josh mentioned, the #1 issue that I believe that our community faces, as well as our state and the world. So there's no passion that is greater for me personally outside of climate change and global warming. I'm lucky enough to have a son who is a 9th grader at Sentinel and a daughter who is a 6th grader at Hellgate Middle School. And I'm super happy to be here.
Thanks, Jeremy. Next up is Virgil.
Hello, my name is Virgil Jones. I'm an 8th grader at CS Porter Middle School, and I would say I started getting interested in climate last year when I went to the climate strike, and that just really made me realize how important of an issue this is, because I just want to keep the world a good place for my generation and the generations to come, and I'm just so happy to get this opportunity.
Thank you, Virgil. And next up is Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace. I'm a senior at Hellgate High School, and I've been involved in environmental work for probably most of my high school career. I actually started working on a project to minimize plastic waste in Missoula's restaurants, and I was working with Michael on that, so I've known him for a couple of years. And other than that, I've been involved with groups at school and other community groups, and I will be heading to college in the fall where, well, I mean, we'll see if I actually go because of COVID, but I hope to study international relations and environmental studies and hopefully eventually work in the Foreign Service working on environmental issues abroad. So that's my plan. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else on the call here caught this, but there was an article about Grace in the Missoulian and I think the Current both maybe just about a month ago. So it was a great read. If you can pull it up if you're looking for some additional information about Grace's interests. So thank you, Grace. Next up is Brian.
Yeah, welcome to all our new members. Great to see you, have you on board. I'm the utility engineer at the University of Montana. I've worked for a few decades. I've worked my whole career in energy, in last couple decades in renewable energy, putting systems up here around campus. I don't know if some of you remember about 4 or 5 years ago, before they built Missoula College, there used to be a wind turbine in Hellgate Canyon. I put that up. And yeah, I've been passionate about these things for my life, really. And glad to see young people picking up that passion and carrying it forward, because we're certainly going to need your energy and enthusiasm to get us out of this mess.
Thank you, Brian. Next up, Trevor.
Yeah, well, welcome. As everyone said, it's very exciting and all of you are very impressive. So I'm glad to see the engagement in our youth and everything. It's just is a bright spot in the world. And I did see Grace's article right after our meeting last month. So it was very serendipitous. It's very good. I'm a financial advisor here for Merrill Lynch. I specialize in sustainable investing, and that's kind of my niche. I've been really passionate about climate change and aspects of that really since about your guys' age, middle school. I lived in oil and gas country, and in a big boom time, so it was always on kind of front of mind, where you had big flaring right next to your property and in your house. And I remember in middle school, you guys reminded me, I went to a luncheon with some oil and gas CEOs and was grilling them on how they said it wasn't detrimental to the impact and nothing smelled. And I was like, well, there's a big flame coming out, so I think something is going on. But I did get, a nice brisket lunch out of it. So, there's always pluses and minuses also of the other side as well. But really excited to have you guys here.
It's good. All right. And for Megan, Michael Morris is also here. So, I mean, not Michael, Megan, David Morris is here. So David, you're up next.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I was a little late getting on the call. I'm Dave Morris. I live here in Missoula, of course, and I mainly work teaching college, university level field courses, oftentimes on energy and climate issues. And I'm actually just getting ready to go out to Utah with some group of students and teach for the next month. Or 6 weeks. So I will be absent from some of the future calls. But these issues have been a major passion for me and focus of my teaching and activism. I work with Climate Smart Missoula on their local offsetting programs that are coming out. I've worked with 350 Montana on various actions, and just try to stay really active and informed. I'm really glad to be part of this group and to have some younger folks involved as well. That's a big focus for me, is just providing whatever information and resources I can to help us as a whole society, not just older well-established people, to really get involved and be effective in dealing with this huge crisis we've got.
Thanks, Dave. Next up, Ellis.
Hi, I'm Ellis, and thank you all for the warm welcome. I am a ninth grader at Hellgate High School, and my past in terms of climate awareness and action, I first, I think past 3-4 years, middle school, when I became involved, when I really began to understand climate change, like scientifically, and the drastic implications and direct implications. It's like that from I don't know, I just saw very personal results, and I became involved via like the climate marches, and have just been excited and passionate to learn about it. So just want to say thank you all for this pretty phenomenal opportunity, and can't wait to learn. So thank you.
Thanks, Ellis. Scott, Dr. McNall. You mute there, Scott. There you go.
No, I'm unmuted.
Yeah, you go.
So, welcome, and as everybody has said, we're delighted to have you on this panel. I'm a retired university professor and have taught about environmental issues and climate change for a number of years. And I think, like some of you, there's always been a moment of epiphany when we've decided no more of this. And I'd sort of like to hear sometime about what yours was. I grew up in Oregon. I still have my Smokey the Bear badge and my Oregon Green Guard badge. But when I really got mad was when I had gone to one of my favorite fishing holes with my friends in school, and we found the fishing hole was gone. Well, what happened to our fishing hole? Well, clear-cut logging had decimated the entire area. The stream was filled in, fish were dead, and that's when I got interested in the environment. Still am. So our sense of place drives a lot of what we care about, which is why we're in Montana. Sorry, I've got a scratchy throat this morning. Thanks you all, and look forward to our conversation.
All right, thanks, Scott. How about Michael?
Hello, everybody. Michael Dorsours. I'm a licensed sanitarian, Missoula City County Health Department. Been working with the team about 5 years now. Environmental health is protecting environmental health is my job every day. Also used to work in education, both high school science and at the university. But I wanted to take just a second and kind of pause and have everybody absorb how momentous this is, that we have these kids working on a city team now. Chris rightly brought this up in the meeting we had with the kids yesterday, but this is a first, and this is really momentous. And it's not to put pressure on you guys, but this is something that, as Chris has said, is that the city is looking at and doing with other teams. So you guys are the trailblazers in a lot of ways, in this being just one of them. So I want to tell you guys that, we spent a lot of time thinking about this, as Josh mentioned, and we're really excited to have this happen. And we're really happy that you guys can be a part of this really momentous first in Missoula. And then I'd also like to let you know that the people in this team are all really great people. Really enjoyed working with them. They all have their individual strengths, and it's been a wonderful opportunity to work with all of them. I'd like to point out that Josh, and thank him for all the work with victims that he does, and also on his fashion sense, rocking the bib overalls. I really appreciate it, Josh. That is going out there all the way.
That was born during COVID, and it's all I wear now, and it's all I'm going to wear from now on.
It certainly does not look like a uniform unless you were a farmer. And I also want a hugely important person to introduce themselves. These meetings cannot happen without the city clerk's office and the folks that are involved. And so, Megan, would you take a minute to introduce yourself and what you do to make sure we are successful from day to day?
Hoping to slide under the radar there. I'm Megan. I've spoken with all of you. I am the admin staff in the city clerk's office, and I help get boards populated if there are vacancies. And this particular team is sort of my group that I staff. And so I arrange the meetings, set everything up, do the agendas and minutes and kind of all the background stuff. So you guys can just focus on the important topics. Thanks.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you for all your help. I'm just going to wrap up this little introduction by saying, there's obviously a couple of common threads amongst everybody here. Not only the the concern about global climate change, but also the willingness to actually do something about it. And that's something that a lot of us don't do. We talk, but we don't actually do anything about it. Another common thread is we've got a lot of educators, or people have been in education one way or the other off their life. But particularly for the youth team members, one of the things when you guys are thinking about what am I going to do when I go off to college or whatever you're going to do, you know, you can come at this from so many different ways. I mean, we have a lawyer, we have a financial planner, we've got engineers, we got scientists, we got database managers, you know, we've got environmental health experts, we have environmental science scientists, we've got researchers, you know, we've got, again, there's this huge breadth of folks, and all of them can, with that expertise, can have an impact on reducing carbon emissions. And so it's just it's an interesting way to look at it, that we, the diverse backgrounds, but the common themes, and all of us able to make a difference. So with that, I did have one other quick announcement. I just wanted to mention that I'm going to be attending virtually a 2-day conference on energy transition. I'm going to share my screen here. And one of the nice things about this is it's free. So if anybody, you can come for an hour or come for a day. And so this is actually Colorado State. I actually I've attended this when I lived down there a number of times, and it's interesting. It started out as sort of an oil and gas conference about the transitioning away from oil to natural gas, and you know, someday we're going to be doing solar, and now it's all really about you know, the next steps, not the old steps. So I'll send this out, but it's a pretty good one, and it's free. And again, you can come to any part of it if you want, and learn a little bit about such things as the shifting focus on federal and regional regulatory drivers, you know, the new administration. There's one on empowering women in energy, clean energy investments, you know, and how states are doing things, and so forth and so on. So I'll send that along. Next up are public comments on items not listed on the agenda. Okay, so if anybody's out there listening on the phone or watching on our web TV or YouTube, Megan's going to share with you how to find us, how to call in. There's actually call-in numbers, and here they are. So it doesn't look like we have it. There's also a password and a web ID number in case you use the phone call to come in. If you do, you would call in on that number. Oh, that's voicemail. But on the number 253-215-8782. Webinar ID is 816-6469-7199. It's a mouthful. The password is 648409. So again, the web ID is 816 and 6469-7199. All right. And as we talked about at the last meeting, we've changed up our agenda a little bit and moved the action items above the non-action items, because we didn't want to put the squeeze on the action items as we got going on the non-action items. So as many of you are aware, the city, the county, and Northwestern Energy have entered into an MOU to work on the city and the county's goal of 100% clean electricity by 2030. And so they did this through a series of work groups and meeting with a whole bunch of different folks around town and in the county and within Northwestern Energy, and came up with 6 items that they wish to work on. And let me just pull that up here. I thought it was here. So that plan has, sometimes, you know, you think you've got something right there at the tip of your finger until you don't. All right, so this is the web page the city's put together. This is kind of cool. They're Engage Missoula. So all the big projects the cities are involved with, they list them all here. So this is kind of an interesting place. You can go and look at all the other ones. Clark Fork Restoration, Community Housing Needs Assessment, all the different stuff. And one of them is this Missoula 100% Clean Electricity Initiative. And right now they're asking for feedback on the draft implementation plan. So this is the draft implementation plan. And the 5 projects are develop utility scale renewable energy through a green tariff. And we actually talked about that at our last meeting. Develop a community scale solar project. So this is pretty exciting. Revised tact cost effectiveness tests for demand side management programs. So I had to do a little research myself to understand what that was. Develop a time-based rate pilot program. Again, some research. Develop an electric bus charging tariff. Okay, that makes a little sense. Establish a streamlined process for data, energy data access, which is a great idea. So with that, I've developed a set of comments to send back to the city and the county and Northwestern Energy about some of our thoughts on that. I was talking with Diana Mineta. She's the renewable energy conservation coordinator for the county, and she's facilitating this process at the moment. And what she asked from us is a set of detailed comments that she could use to help drive this process forward. Hopefully folks had a chance to read it. And what you find is that a lot of the projects are driven by Northwestern Energy and are of their direction of the sort of the kinds of things that Northwestern Energy wants to do. It's interesting that less of them really come from the community, although a couple of them do. And so they read like that. They read like the Northwestern Energy is going to do this for us, instead of we've decided jointly on what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to work to accomplish it. And so some of my comments hit upon that, particularly early on. One of the other ones that I hit upon is with these renewable energy green tariff. So green tariff for the new folks on the team is essentially it's like a tax. It's a fee. So you may pay an extra fee to get something. It could be as simple as we pay an extra whatever $10 a month for recycling. That's a fee. A tariff makes it a little more formal. It's formalized through the Montana Public Service Commission, so it becomes a legal binding fee, and therefore they call it a tariff. It's not really a tax either, because it's not based on how much money you make or the value of your house. It's based on a ratio of how much renewable energy you use, and so let's say you get 100 megawatt or kilowatt hours, and it's going to cost you 5 cents per kilowatt hour as the tariff. So what they're suggesting is it's going to cost more to give you renewable energy than to give you the energy we currently provide through the Northwestern Energy grid system. Hopefully it won't cost too much more, and hopefully it would actually be cheaper. So wouldn't that be interesting? Because some of this stuff is getting cheaper. It's worth noting for the new folks that the Missoula or the state of Montana's energy mix from Northwestern Energy is approximately 60% hydropower. So we actually, and I think it's 62. We get more renewable energy, maybe not clean. So there's that term in there. They throw in the word clean, but renewable energy than most places other than Washington and Oregon, and some places like in Tennessee, because of the rivers we have. We get a lot of electricity through Bonneville Power, which is the Columbia River system that runs out of the Pacific, and the Upper Missouri, particularly in the Great Falls area, where there's a series of dams and reservoirs that head down the Missouri toward the Mississippi. And so we do get quite a bit of that, but we're talking about clean energy. So in other words, it doesn't kill fish or whatever. It doesn't disturb too much habitat. As we know, there's no free energy. There's no free lunch. All energy costs something from an environmental standpoint. How much it costs, we're going to try to reduce it, but you can't. If you put up solar panels, well, that's habitat that may have existed for field mice, or grass or flowers. There's no free lunch here. But anyways, one of the issues that I really came up with this green tariff is they're setting it up as like a 5 to 15 year program where an entity would buy into it for this time, commit to it for that level of duration, and pay for it for this 15 years. And so my point is, this sounds to me like it will only involve large commercial customers. Small commercial customers, maybe certainly not residences. Maybe governments could do it. Maybe some of the bigger businesses in town, like Roseburg Forest Products out there, could do this. But so that was a big part of the comment, and the same comment I made primarily for the community solar issues. They make it sound like this 3 to 10 megawatt project. Well, again, we'll have the tariff. There'll be a long-term commitments. You're going to want to buy a little bit more of the juice, and so maybe some of our bigger banks, Stockman or Clearwater Credit Union, or maybe the city and the county, but all the mom and pops down the street, I don't see this working for them. So I made a big deal about that in the comments, and then so forth and so on. And then this one here, this cost-effective test, just gets into like real energy regulations and how they determine what things cost. So I'm not going to get into it too much. But instead of me going through this anymore, I'm going to open up the floor. Please, use your hands up. We've got a lot more folks now, and I'll try to call on everybody as best I can. Get my window open here so I can see everybody. All right, so we're taking comments on the draft implementation plan. We're taking comments on my comments in the draft implementation plan. The action at the end of this, hopefully, is that we will vote to move these comments forward to be submitted to the 3 MOU parties, the city, the county, and Northwestern Energy.
Chris, can I say something regarding?
Yeah.
I think number one, thank you for putting together these comments. It's extremely helpful, and the feedback is good. I think just to piggyback on one thing that you mentioned, as far as the green tariff, it appears as though it would only be available for mid-sized customers to large customers. I certainly agree, and I think it should be clearly stated that we're missing out on the opportunity to take advantage of so much positive energy in Missoula from residents and individual citizens to take part, and I think that's a big driving force in Missoula, is the power of the people and the power of people wanting to see something done in a positive aspect with regards to renewable energy. And I think you're absolutely right that it appears as though the green tariff will leave out a huge section of people in Missoula. I guess the second thing that I wanted to mention is I have serious concerns that the different plans or the different options that are in the implementation plan, I'm concerned that it still doesn't get us to 100% renewable, 100% clean electricity. And I understand that when the document was written, it it states that, and it makes it clear that this doesn't get us to the ultimate goal. But I think, I don't want to see us as a community further delay, because certainly 2025 is coming very, very quickly. And to get to 80%, it's going to be an aggressive task, and to get to 100% by 2030 is going to be aggressive as well. And I guess I was hoping that there would be some additional items described in the MOU from the get-go.
Jeremy, I'll add that comment in the introductory section that the items may not get us there, and we should they should plan on adding additionals. They're going to revisit this once every 2 years, so the next time it could be 2.5 years or more before we have the opportunity to add another item to this list.
Right. Thank you.
Let's take notes here. Hands up, Mr. Brian Kearns, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Well done on putting together these comments. I wanted to echo, I think, what I heard Jeremy said a minute ago about the power of the people. And in fact, I'd like to see about, I don't know if it's possible or not, but there was the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival just closed up a week or two ago, and it was a virtual event, and there was a lot of great documentaries filmed during that, or screened during that event, and one of them was called "We the Power." I don't know if anybody else seen that or participated in the film festival, but it is precisely talking to what we're trying to do here. And it's mostly based in Europe, where people in Europe got fed up with what they're seeing coming pushed on them from the utilities. And this is looking at a number of different places, Belgium, Germany, UK, all over the place, how they've implemented these projects and how they have pushed against utilities, and the results. It's only like a 35-minute film. I'll reach out and see if we can't. It was world premiere actually at the film festival, so I don't know how available it is at this moment, but I'll reach out and see if there's interest on the team, if we can maybe arrange for some kind of special screening of that, because I think it really speaks to the type of power, as Jeremy mentioned too, that the people have. And also it mentions or gives a peek into the type of pushback, because when you're doing these type of things, and Chris alluded to it as well, most of what is in that progress document is there by the behest of Northwestern Energy. So they've inserted themselves squarely in the middle of this process. So basically they can control the process. And obviously they have a vested interest in doing that. To the degree that we move away from their grid, they lose money. So they don't really want to see that happen. And they want to control how it happens. And so, again, this movie that I'm referring to talks about how people took the power directly into their hands and actually took over utilities themselves. Very, very informative, very illustrative, and I think it would do well to inform the team going forward.
Thanks, Brian. Next up is Grace.
Thank you. I have a couple questions just to clarify. So first, about this, the plans for 100% clean energy by 2030. I just want to clarify, is that referring to the city and its operations being 100% clean energy, or is it the entirety of the city, all citizen, like everyone is clean?
Jeremy, did you want to take that on?
Sure. So my understanding is it's the latter, Grace. It refers to specifically electricity. So this is not affecting natural gas, but it is 100% for the Missoula City and the Missoula County areas.
That's my understanding, yeah. And so by clean electricity, hydro again is not considered clean. Some are, some aren't. And so while we're getting 60% already, we may need to add a whole lot of other wind, solar, geothermal, whatever else needs to be added to make that work. And it is a very aggressive approach. That's a lot of renewables in a short amount of time. But it does just deal with electricity. All right, so Scott and then Virgil.
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Chris, and for getting us to dig into this. I'm, I guess, the cynic here. I see the whole proposal as a way for Northwest Energy to raise prices. And as Brian said, this is a document written by, for, and on behalf of Northwest Energy. And I don't know how to embed that topic. And then I want to jump ahead a little bit to the material that Jeremy sent out, which is all the legislation that is before, that is being reviewed right now in Helena. The reality is most of those proposals that has been suggested we oppose are ones that, again, privilege Northwest Energy in terms of the kind of power that's going to be provided and the rates that are going to be charged. These individuals did not bring forward these proposals because somebody in Kalispell said, oh, gee, I guess we need to help out Northwest Energy on net metering. And then to go even further back, some of you are familiar with the American Legislative Exchange Council, which writes legislation for conservative members of groups such as our own government. And you will find on Alex's websites some of the language that mirrors the language being proposed now on behalf of Northwest Energy. So last time these things came around, I was a skeptic, and I still am. And my own vote would be to vote no on this agreement.
Chris, it looks like you're muted.
Yeah, there was some noise in the house here. Sorry. Right. So next up, so we've got Virgil, then Trevor, then back to Grace. So Virgil, you're next up.
Okay. So definitely, Chris, with looking at the part you were just talking to us about, I feel like it definitely needs to, the green tariffs need to be working for everybody, even the small businesses and individual people, because Missoula is just, it's a very willing place. I think this is a kind of the perfect place to be working on this, and I think we need to take advantage of that. So, because it's not going to work as well, and it's not really, if it's just going for big businesses, it's not, I don't think that's going to work quite as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, Trevor?
2 seconds. I think my laptop's gonna die. Hopefully it won't. To echo the concerns with how it's slanting towards Northwestern, I wasn't sure how, I guess, how intricate is this, our suggestion is going to be, because I would suggest adding things like for the metered time-based is the education piece, because like you mentioned, if people aren't educated on it, they're not going to be incentivized. So is Northwestern going to actively go out and encourage people to switch those meters? And then also, I know Excel had a big campaign for early adopters, like for electric car users, to switch to it because it's a huge benefit for them to use it, have a plan that is charging at night. So maybe suggesting something that is a guaranteed rate discount or whatever by being part of the pilot program, so you incentivize people to participate, because people just don't participate, then they're going to be like, oh, it doesn't work, even though we all know it'd probably be pretty tremendous as far as for the time-based metering.
All right, I can put that in there. No, I absolutely agree. I do have some of that in there. I can't remember which one, but where I talked about try instead of rolling it all out at once. I think this was on the community solar, to roll it out over time. So yeah, so you can get some early adopters and they can build some momentum for the program, but then you'll have subsequent offerings of the clean electricity going forward. And I also do mention the need for outreach and education, and that being a critical part of getting people involved. So if I haven't already included it in a lot of these, one of the ones that you're talking about is advanced metering infrastructure, so also known as AMI. So that's where you've got smart meters essentially. And the smart meters talk about, how much energy you're using at different times of the day, using different times of the season, and how that impacts your rates. And hopefully they can use it to, one of the most expensive things about electricity and is peak power. I'm sure most folks have heard this team, but when it's the hottest time of the summer, or the coldest, this is what happened in Texas. They peaked beyond their available capacity, which caused a further shutdown in the system. So if you can shave the top off the peaks, it's cheaper, and you need less capacity, less power plants. And so that's a part of an educational thing that people can understand. Or in this case, understanding how much electricity they're using, where its source is it from hydro, is it from coal? So I will also beef up the educational portion, Trevor. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I just add, Chris, and part of it is, I think, at the nature, especially as you get down to the lower income area, it's not necessarily, I think we're thinking about the overall cost a lot because we're passionate about it. But a lot of families if they don't see the financial benefit to them, then they're not going to move on something where a lot of these do have a financial motivation or financial advantage to them. They just don't see it as that. They just see it as, oh, it's switching to, being greener, quote unquote. And so I don't know if that makes sense too, to emphasize highlighting where this can be cost effective for individuals, not necessarily just for achieving clean energy as well.
And I'll have to say, because these are green tariff programs, and the AMI stuff, it's not going to save anybody money unless they choose to. And so there is nothing in this that will save any customer's money, not a dime. And I'm absolutely with you, Trevor. Money talks, and I'm a free marketeer all the way, and this is an important element that they just seem to have forgotten in this whole process. So next up was Grace.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you guys may have just clarified part of my question, but since I've never had to purchase energy before, I just like to clarify a little bit of how this works. So as I understand it, based on your conversation, it's essentially, well, current as written right now, it would be mostly businesses, but hopefully, ideally, say a family purchases power as needed, but is it slightly more expensive now because it's green? Is that how this works? Is that, and that slightly more expensive is the tariff part? I'm sure I'm oversimplifying it, but like in a general sense.
Anybody want to step in and try to answer that one? If not, I'll do it. So I used to do one of these when I lived in Colorado, and what it was, either you would purchase a percentage of your power or a given number of kilowatt hours. So let's say you wanted, in this case, 50% of your power to come from a green source, or let's call that 500 kilowatt hours. What they would do is they would say, okay, in order to get these 500 kilowatt hours, we're going to charge you an extra penny to administer it. We're going to charge you 3 extra cents because the contract to purchase this is higher than what we're paying right now on our other systems. And actually in the plan, it even goes through the 3 or 4 different places that they're going to charge extra money for. Volumetric fee for dollars per kilowatt hour to cover the cost of the renewable energy project. A volumetric fee per kilowatt hour to recover the additional administrative costs of the projects. A volumetric credit in kilowatt hours, dollars per kilowatt hours, to cover customer credit for that portion of the energy which is no longer taken from the Northwestern Energy's default supply mix. Okay, there you go. And an application fee may be required. So, if I was a business owner and I was really motivated about clean energy, and there's a lot of those folks in Missoula, I'd be, okay, I can do that. And I can commit to 15 years because let's say I own a building already and I got a 30-year mortgage on my building. But let's say you're a homeowner, let's say you're a renter, and you're going to say, okay, well, how much are all these fees going to run me? Well, it depends on how many kilowatt hours you use. Depends on how many you commit to. And so then these guys can come back every couple of years and go to the PSC and change these rates. And it's restrictive. It's onerous, and it doesn't have to be. We don't want Northwestern Energy to lose money, right? They're a public utility. Their job is to make money. We restrict their ability to make money because we have a PSC that restricts their rates. We want to guarantee that they make their 5 or 10%. But they have to give us something in return that allows us, the average Joe, to participate. And right now, this looks like a one-way street to me. I don't know. Did that answer your question, Grace? All right. So we got 3 more folks. So it's Scott, Dave Morris, and then Virgil.
Yeah, real quickly, Chris, you summed up most of my concerns in saying this is all to benefit Northwest Energy. Every one of these proposals is a revenue increase for them. I want to speak just directly to the smart meters and to the point that Trevor raised about education. We did a project in California where the smart meters went in. The sales that PG&E put forth, or the message they put forth, was you're going to be able to regulate your control of your energy consumption. And you're not going to be doing your laundry in the middle of the day or trying to dry your clothes, because look what that's going to do to your energy bill. And the idea was that people would be able to read their smart meters in order to figure this out. But the 100 people who got smart meters and whose homes we went to, none of them could figure out what was not working in their home. What were the big energy drags? Where was their heating and cooling going? And the Sacramento SMUD, the Sacramento Metropolitan Utilities District, also found that in terms of the education component, they basically had to come out and do a prescriptive audit of every single homeowner, which took them a couple of years. But trying to figure out how to use a smart meter is difficult for the ordinary homeowner. And the smart meters are designed to raise rates, period.
Good point, Scott. Thank you. All right, Dave Morris, please.
Okay. Hey, sorry, it took me a moment to unmute there. I would just comment on the smart meters in the. I can easily see how in the past and how even currently they could be used to increase power rates and infrastructure for utility. If they are like customer managed, it's going to be very difficult. But now, like the intent or the potential for them is that it's not something that you run. It's like you say, dishwasher can run, between these hours, and based on power rates, will run it when is most advantageous. So not necessarily a bad thing to have, but I guess it's the management of those meters and their ultimate utility that's kind of the question. And I was just going to also talk about the idea that green tariffs are going to move us really towards renewable energy futures quickly is, I think, a pretty weak premise. We have right now programs like this where you can choose, or businesses can choose to pay these things, and they generally don't. And it seems to sort of cement this idea that renewable power is more expensive and you should pay a premium for renewable power. Whereas all of the trends currently are that renewable power is cheaper and getting even cheaper by the month than fossil fuel generation. So I think the sort of premise of a green tariff into the sort of coming era of renewable energy is kind of backwards. I mean, I would actually, it's in Northwestern's interest, it's in our interest for them to build renewable power. They may be sort of, institutionally or philosophically attached to old fossil fuel power, but they need to move this direction, and we shouldn't have to pay them to do it. And so I'm just concerned that this narrative of expensive renewable power is outdated and serves to reinforce the utilities and sort of the general perception that this is like, a green, luxury that, the wealthy can afford because they will pay more for the power, right? When actually this is the cheapest power available in the coming decades, and they need a shove to embrace it, not, sort of a pittance from the people who care the most, that will barely move this transition along. So those are my comments on the plan.
Right. So in our comments to them, we can add something to that effect. We'll talk about their implementation, but have a broader comment that says the green tariffs were a way that a lot of utilities attempted to bring renewable energy forward, but based on my research, there's not as nearly as many as there used to be, and there's very few new ones because they are moving to other models and other concepts for it, like renewable energy being far cheaper is certainly a big driver. So try to capture that. And also back to Scott's point about how these meters, and Trevor, how these smart meters don't always attain the goal of energy reduction, because people don't necessarily understand them, or, I know from my standpoint, it's about convenience. I'm not going to get up at midnight to do my laundry. It's just not going to happen. But human nature being what it is. I will say, this is just a quick sidelight. The city of Missoula is moving to green smart water meters. So we'll all be getting smart water meters. I actually have one at my house already. We'll see if it changes how much I put on my grass every day in the summertime. I don't know. Good question. All right. So then we had, I think, Virgil, you were up next, and then Jeremy.
Okay, so kind of building off what David said, I agree that it doesn't really make that much sense to be doing these green tariffs when green energy is only getting cheaper and fossil fuels are just going to keep getting more expensive as we run out of the resources. So I think we just need to make sure that it's affordable for people, because that's going to make it a lot more, it's going to make people want to, do you want to pay more money for green energy or less money? It's cheaper, and we just need to make it look inviting to people. And I think another thing that could help is definitely educating people about it, to make sure they know how it works and how it's going to benefit them and benefit the world. Because people don't know about this, people aren't going to be taking the tariff or whatever we end up using. So I think education and making sure it's affordable are both really important things.
We'll make sure I include those in our comments. Those were great comments, Virgil. Thank you so much. I think to Jeremy.
Hey, I'd like to echo what Virgil said and what David said. I think both very well spoken. I am concerned, with a green tariff, if we're talking about a number of the larger businesses, and again, a specific, the implementation plan does not specify what is a large business, what is a medium business. It's not to that level of detail, but I do have concerns that a lot of your larger businesses that have locations in Missoula and Montana and lots of other places around the country that are, shareholder driven, oftentimes may not be interested in participating in a green tariff because it, based upon the cost structure, and if they're a fast food restaurant that uses a good amount of energy here in Missoula, but yet they have shareholders all over the world, and if they're concerned that, buying into a green tariff is going to increase their costs by tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year, we may see low numbers of businesses that engage or that buy into a 5 to 15 year commitment, just because of shareholders and larger businesses and reporting to shareholders outside of Missoula.
Thank you, Jeremy. These are all great points. You guys are really hitting it. So next up is Brian, and then Ellis.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify a little bit of what's going on, some of the discussion on smart meters. I have over 50 of them on campus. I use them all the time. They're not particularly difficult to use at all. But the reason that you'd want to use them is if you have what they call block tariffs, inverted block tariffs. And we don't. We just have a single tariff. So it doesn't matter if you do your laundry at 2 a.m. or at noon, because there's no incentive, there's no change in the rates throughout the time of the day. Now that might change going forward. Northwest Energy might, change their tariff rates to have that. A lot of utilities across the country already do, but we don't. So there is absolutely no incentive to move, load from one time of day to the other at this point in time.
All right, I'll add that in. It's a good point. Yeah, it's useful from an educational standpoint, but from a business standpoint, you do what makes money, and that you have to. You just can't throw money around. So good point, Ellis.
So as everybody's been saying, I agree that it's unfortunately about the money for a lot of people, and I think the misconceptions and with green energy and cost. I just know even when like talking about it with like friends, there's just like a look that passes, or it's just like sometimes just negative prematurely without understanding it. And I know just personally, like I didn't fully understand tariffs, and I was just thinking about like the trade war with China when I heard tariffs. So I know that. But I think I'm also curious how this plan plays into like private, like solar arrays or whatever, or if it doesn't, and just like how people can benefit off personal green energy choices. Because I know like my family tried to put solar panels up, and Northwestern Energy had like a lot of restrictions regarding how many kilowatt hours you could generate yourself. So even that in itself just makes it so people like, why would you spend a bunch of money to put up solar panels if, and I wasn't sure the entire specifications of the regulations, but I know that it really impeded upon the benefits of producing your own energy. So.
Yeah. So, again, for the new folks, and we've all heard this, it's not my job to trash on our public utility, but here in Montana, it is very hard to develop your own system, rooftop solar or small scale wind or geothermal, because of the net metering costs and other restrictions. And so the community solar and the green tariff renewable, they're separate, so there isn't a connection. What I would hope is, a lot of people who don't want to commit to rooftop solar, this is an avenue for them to step in on a community solar, and they can get some portion, and they don't, we can renew every year and say, give us so many kilowatt hours. But essentially these are two different issues. The point being is that the Public Service Commission and Northwestern Energy has made both of those things difficult. And as a matter of fact, we don't have community solar right now because there's a restriction on the size, as you mentioned. And actually one of my comments was, well, how can you put in a 10 megawatt community solar when no one else can? Because we're not allowed to put anything that big in. And so I don't even know what the answer to that is, but it's a question I put out there. So sorry, I went on. Was there anybody next? Was there some, Grace?
Thanks, I forgot to raise my hand on that. This might be a bit of a change of topic, but we've been talking a lot about how, because Northwestern Energy has such control of this plan and how that negatively impacts like consumerism, the ability of individuals to participate, as well as like the actual costs. But I'd love to hear thoughts or an explanation of the environmental significance of this, like the flips, because that's the end goal, and we need participation to reach that end goal. But yes, I'm not sure that's a totally clear question, but open floor.
Yeah, reduction in carbon emissions. That's what we're talking about. Anybody want to jump in on that? So from a clean electricity standpoint, in some of these restricted projects, this would be brand new power. They couldn't sell existing power. They couldn't come to us and say, hey, we've got 62% hydro, so we're going to sell you some of that at a premium because it's renewable. And so there is a strict control within the green tariff program where the renewable energy has to be new. So in other words, it's going to displace other forms of electricity that Northwestern Energy would otherwise use. For instance, coal strip power plant, if it ever runs again, or more likely, their purchase of energy from natural resource or natural gas turbine systems. And so it will have a net carbon reduction effect because it is brand new renewable power.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Lots of good comments, everybody. I've got some work to do. And so in terms of next steps, because of the timing, these comments are due on the 15th. But some additions are going to be needed, but we can't necessarily, all right, so I'm going to step back for the new folks. We talked the other day about the Montana public law, public meetings and right to know stuff. And so I can't send this in a few days without the formal consent of a simple majority of this body. But one of the ways to kind of get around it is if you have the document and it's spelled out substantially, but all you're doing is making some tweaks, you can pass a resolution that says we support this document being sent out with the caveat that we're going to make a few tweaks, some edits, and we would have 2 or 3 people, a little working group, review and approve those before they are submitted to the MOU partners. So that's how we sort of, I don't want to say get around it, but we're, what I'm asking for is basically that's a motion to approve the submission of these comments to Northwestern Energy with the caveat that we had some comments at today's meeting that are all documented that will go in, not necessarily substantially change the content of the document, but allow us to make some tweaks without having to get back together for another vote.
So move.
All right, so we got a first, we need a second.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on the proposal on the table? To restate the proposal, the motion. The motion is to approve the comments to be submitted with the caveat that we will add several of the comments from today's discussion, and that I can do that, but I want to have at least one other person or 2 other people take a look at it so I'm not doing something that wasn't in the intent of this motion and the intent of this team.
I got one
Trevor.
last quick question.
Oh, I thought you were volunteering, Trevor.
I'll volunteer too.
Thank you, Trevor.
All this discussion with the tariff aspect of it and then the community solar, I guess one of my concerns of how those would interlock is, would this, if Northwestern or the utility company is already getting a tariff for that, let's say utility, are they then, can we recommend a restriction then also on not having them be able to layer another fee for like the network usage? Because if you're already paying one tariff and then to get just a community solar up and running, and then they're going to come back on the back end and be like, oh, well, now you also got to pay this extra fee to put the energy through the network as well. And I didn't pay attention enough when I read through the whole plan if it had mentioned that tariff is going to go towards subletting those costs of using the network. I just don't know.
Yeah, so when you look at your bill, and I'm sure Brian understands this better, that network charge already exists, and it's on I think there's a couple of them that are fixed, but other ones are on a kilowatt hour basis. So they would remain, so those charges would remain, and basically, I don't think they change, but you would still be paying them.
Right. My concern is just them adding it if it's available on a community solar type project. If you're going to say, okay, well, we didn't care about it because no one is allowed to use X, Y kilowatt, but now you have one that's 20 kilowatts and that's putting X amount onto the grid. So now we're going to impose a fee onto that for supply. Because if it stays the same, that's all fair. I guess my concern is if you're paying a tariff to create it and then they're like, okay, great, you contain or created this, but now to use it, we're gonna add a fee as well.
Right. So where that would come in is here, the last line, it says, the tariff will need to be filed with the MPSC and the terms and rates will be subject to MPSC approval. So they could still come in with one of those, but it would have to go through Public Service Commission.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that the Public Service Commission couldn't or wouldn't approve an additional transmission fee.
Okay. Yeah.
But at least we know we've got that
one layer.
Yeah, that governmental entity. Yeah.
Okay. But also, I'm happy to review it after changes and everything too. That's fine.
Sounds good. Any further discussion? Grace?
I also would like to look at it when you're done. I'm not sure I would be helpful in terms of like the actual content, but I just like to look at it after you're done.
Yeah, everyone will get a copy of it. Ellis?
Sorry, I'm not entirely sure how the public process works, and since we like passed the public comment section, so I'm just more question about like the process. I know that I saw on the YouTube live video some Mike Sudik was commenting or typing, so maybe they didn't. I don't know. There are just several contributions. I'm not sure when that occurs or if they weren't aware of like the process to be able to call in. But I just saw those and thought I'd
call in to our meeting right now.
No, they were just like saying smart meters allow the utility to better manage instantaneous demand. We can lower, so they're just adding contributions, I think, to whatever, but I'm not sure they knew how to join, so I just thought that I should say.
No, thank you. And you know, this is open to the public, and if the public wishes to comment, they're welcome to comment on this discussion. And so, yeah, through the system, right, that we have our web stream, which is probably what they're on, and they're using some comment button on that. Is that correct, Ellis? But you can call in as well. But yeah, I don't see comments that come up to our web streaming or our YouTube. They would have to phone call in, and then they can make their comments at that point. Brian, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to volunteer to proof that if you want another one. Sounds like you got enough, but if you want me to take a peek at it, I'd be happy to as well.
All right, if needed, I'll put you down as that. Any additional discussion, or is there any public that wishes to discuss? Okay, seeing none, Megan, let's take a vote. And so one of the things before a little side note, so the non-voting members, the UT members and our one alternate don't vote, but it's really important that they know that they can express their opinion as to whether they would vote yay or nay, and make motions. They can adjust motions. They can do all the other parliamentary things that are available to all of us except the vote. But maybe before I ask Megan to call the roll on the voting members, let me see for the 5 non-voting members, yays and nays on approval of these comments. Yays approve it. Show of hands. 2, 3, 4. All right. So we have unanimous consent from the non-voting members. Thank you guys very much. So Megan, just call the roll for the voting members.
Chris.
Yay.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Trevor. Saw a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Okay. Michael?
Yay.
Brian,
Yay.
Scott,
Yay.
Josh.
Yay.
Great, that is 7 yays, 0 no's. Anybody want to change their vote? It's passed, thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on. It's 1:22. We've got just over half an hour. Non-action items. So up next is the state legislative update. Jeremy sent that along. Jeremy and Michael have been working diligently on this, so I'm going to hand this over to them.
Thank you, Chris. You are absolutely correct. Michael and I have been working on this. I sent a copy out just about half an hour before the meeting. If you have that open, the first two, and this is very similar to what was sent out a week ago. So if you have the copy from a week ago, that is fine as well. Pages 1 and 2 are the top priority bills, or the high priority. In the revised version, there are 9 bills that are high priority, and all of them at varying degrees are concerning, and we would, you know, based upon our review in the past, and specifically based upon our goal of encouraging energy conservation, climate action related commitments, projects, work, things like that, as what's stated at the top of page 1. Based upon that filter, or based upon that perspective, all 9 of these bills would be are not supporting energy conservation, climate action, and take us in the wrong direction. This document has been shared with multiple folks within the city of Missoula. That includes Amber Sherrill, who is our city council representative. That includes Montana James, who works with the city of Missoula, and also Jessica Miller, who is in the mayor's office with the city of Missoula. They have all received this and are aware of that. The city council is not meeting this coming Monday. So we wanted to, because of spring break, they're trying to carve out a space to have a little bit of a less hectic schedule as well. So we provided it to Amber Sherrill about a week ago before the city council meeting of this past Monday, so that she had that along with Montana James and Jessica. Second item for everyone to know, as you are probably aware, the Montana legislature took a recess. They took about 4 days off or so, from about Tuesday through Friday of last week. They restarted on Monday of this week, really restarted on Tuesday. So we're now into the second half of the legislature. This document has not been updated based upon any changes, amendments that have occurred over the course of this week. It's kind of a constantly moving target, as there can be changes that come up and that need to be reflected in these different pieces of legislation. I see that Michael's got his hand up. Michael.
I was just going to say, Jeremy, while they were talking about the draft amendment, I was also going through the latest bills and amendments on your page there. And so actually we are up to date on that with everything current.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Michael and I are planning to update this list here towards the end of March, first part of April as well. So we will certainly share out additional information as it comes available. I have 3 bills that I want to touch on real quick, but before I do that, I just want to stop and see if there are any questions, see if there's anything that we should talk about regarding what has happened with this legislation thus far. I see Virgil had nope, okay. Anybody, Grace?
Thanks. I have 2 questions. One, I noticed in this revised version, there's not a bill in those top 10 to support, which is there was not. What happened to that one?
So that one is still a good bill, and we are hopeful that that will move forward. It is not, so we went through a process of prioritizing the different bills, and the bills that were highest priority are these 9 that are all on the side of opposed. Michael, I think you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. I just wanted to relate to, especially the new guys real quick, that uh, this legislative session is unusual to say the least. Most legislative sessions are, there's a lot of fast-paced action, there's a lot of waiting around, and there's a lot of fast-paced action. But we generally have a feel at the beginning of the legislature where most things are going to end up. It's not really the case this time. Plus, because of certain political ideological ascendancy in Montana at the moment, there is a prevailing push towards what's being labeled as personal responsibility, but it's really more accurately personal privilege. It's that I want you to follow the rules that I like, but I don't want to follow the rules of yours that I don't like. And that's why you see a lot of opposition in what Jeremy and I are proposing here, because there's just so many really bad things out there and so few really good things for us to be able to support. So it's been an interesting session. We're in a little bit of a lull, as Jeremy was talking about now, because things that were not transmitted by last Saturday are, unless they're an appropriations bill, are not no longer under consideration. So, thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Grace?
I have another question. Thanks for bearing with all my questions today. So this document that you're putting together, you said you shared it with multiple people. I'm curious what the end goal of this document, like how does it affect the Montana legislature?
Sure. So the city of Missoula has a lobbyist, and the end goal is for the city of Missoula to voice either support or opposition to a number of bills. And so we passed it on to Amber Sherrill and 2 other folks within the city. And the goal is that the city council would take our opinion, take the filter that we've applied, whether it supports renewable energy and clean electricity or doesn't, and then also share that with our city lobbyist, who is working in Helena to either support or oppose these bills. Based upon that information, the end goal certainly would be to try and block or stop some of these bills from being passed in the legislature. So, Grace, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
You bet. Absolutely. I'm going to touch on 3 bills real quick here. Number 1 is Senate Bill 257. That's at the top of page 1 if you have that printed out or available on a second screen. This bill would prevent a local government from enacting a policy that includes fees, taxes, etc., based upon carbon use. This certainly could affect the idea of a green tariff that is in the implementation plan that we just talked about, literally minutes ago. So this particular legislation has received some significant press coverage and is a bad bill that a number of folks are trying to stop. This bill also seems to be, it may have been focused on Missoula. There's a number of things in there that hit on some things that have come up in city and county government here within the last few months, including limiting a city's right to limit an individual's ability to write and bear arms, dealing with marijuana-infused products, and there's also something in there that talks about commercial fertilizers. Michael.
I could have waited till you were done there. I was just going to add in a little tag on the end of what you were saying. So if you're done, I can talk, but if you had some more to add, then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to hit on the other 2 bills, and then I'll turn it over to you if that's okay, Michael.
Okay, sounds good.
The second one I wanted to touch on is Senate Bill 176. That's at the bottom of page 2. This one is quite an interesting bill relating to coal and coal taxes. One of the concerning parts about this is it attempts to make businesses or entities that are no longer participating or no longer a business that is working with Colstrip to continue to pay for maintenance and cleanup at the plant. Whether or not this is legal, whether or not it, you know, my assumption is that if it were to be passed, it would probably undergo some legal scrutiny. But this is, you know, Senate Bill 176 is one that that does not support, that doesn't move us in the direction of more renewable energy and more clean electricity. The third one that I wanted to touch on is the one right below that. That's House Bill 407. It's at the bottom of page 2. And this would prevent communities from taking actions to move forward towards sustainable containers for food. When I read this bill, I think of either plastic bags as it pertains to going to the grocery store and taking a plastic bag with you that has your food items in it, or not having the ability or having a fee for that plastic bag. I also think it could potentially have an impact, you know, if you're going out to get coffee and if there's an initiative in a community to make those coffee cups compostable, or to-go containers from a restaurant as it pertains to compostable or not compostable containers. As we've talked in a previous bill, there was legislation brought up by Marilyn Marler that would have prevented food-related styrofoam. So containers that are made of styrofoam would, you know, through a process be phased out. That bill that was proposed by Marilyn Marler was tabled, so it is effectively dead. But these three bills are concerning: Senate Bill 257, Senate Bill 176, and House Bill 407. Michael.
Yes, sir. Thank you. You know, not taking anything away from what Jeremy just said, everything was great and right on. I just wanted to, for the new guys, to relate it back to what we were just talking about, or what I had just talked about with the personal responsibility versus personal privilege argument. These three bills are a really great example of that. They all relate to that concept. So SB 257 and HB 407 are, you know, we don't want locals to have influence over what they do locally. It's removing the locals' ability to act on issues that affect their community directly. But then they turn right around on SB 176 and do exactly the opposite. So there we want the locals to be able to influence everybody else in the state on what they want to do. So it's a really inconsistent application of this bad ideology to start with. And then with SB 257, that's really a Trojan horse. There's a lot of really dangerous stuff in there. And that is kind of part and parcel, not just with legislative sessions in general, but again, with this one specifically. Legislators have issues they're reacting to from their constituents, which is great, but are they looking at the greater good for everyone in the long term, or are they looking at getting reelected in the next term? What's happening a lot now is I want to get reelected in the next term rather than what's good for the most people over the long term. And with with 257, especially, they're trying to hit on a lot of hot button issues that are going to rev up the people that support them. And they don't consult experts. They don't look at downstream consequences. All they're doing is all they're looking at is what will make the people who vote for me happy in the moment for what I do. So they throw bills out there that have a lot of things inside of them that can have really detrimental effects after the fact that they have not even considered. And that's where the problem with not consulting experts comes in, because the experts could have pointed those things out and still can, and could have made changes to the bill that they wanted to have, but did not write. So the weird thing about SB 176 is that its future is kind of unknown. It's all of a sudden gone silent in legislative session. It's kind of a sleeper bill right now. There's really no action scheduled on it. Nobody's really talking about it. So maybe it's something that the bill drafters are looking at. Can we revise this and try and make it something that's worthwhile to continue? Or is this something that's just going to have so much opposition to it that we're just going to pull it? So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. That's great. Scott, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, I mean, first, thanks to both of you for providing this document and also for your explanations. I think they're outstanding. This is basically for some of the new members of the committee, especially the students. A reasonable question might be, where do these bills come from? And how do they get framed? Who writes legislation? So if you have the time, go and look at the American Legislative Exchange Council, which writes custom-made legislation for states and then tries to get states and people who are sympathetic with their point of view to push these bills forward. Some of the bills look very similar to proposals from the American Legislative Exchange Council. Also, there's a link with Americans for Prosperity in terms of some of their energy ideas. And then, of course, as Michael said, who benefits? Well, sometimes it's just, am I going to get reelected? But it's also in terms of what the public utilities have, what Northwest Energy has pushed forward as bills.
All very good comments, Scott. Thank you. Any other questions or? Chris, it looks like there's no. Virgil, do you have a question or a thought, comment?
This isn't really related to the bills, but I think it, we probably won't be able to do this meeting, but I'm just wondering about, will it be possible in the future to change our meeting time to like 4 o'clock so students don't have to miss 2 hours of our school?
Definitely something that we've talked about in the past, and I think, Chris, I think that's something that we've talked about talking about in the future.
Yeah. It wasn't on the agenda. I was hoping we'd get to it with team member comments, but yeah, with time running short, we may not. One of the other, to digress with Virgil here is, we haven't had our council person, our representative, attend one of our regular meetings in 6 or 7 months. And so I sent a note to her today going, do we need to change the time? Because that's also been a big issue. So yes, we'll probably take this more offline, but it's probably going to we did a doodle poll before on this, and actually this time worked best for the most folks, but we might try it again and see what works best for our new youth team members and others, and see what else we might be able to come up with.
And I wanted to just quickly add in too, for the students, that we've also discussed that if any of your teachers for any subject would like to have your participation on this team as classwork or even as credit for a class, that we'd certainly be open to helping them with that, helping create curriculum or help them with assignments.
All right. Next up was the process for the team's approach for legislative efforts. We've been trying a bunch of different stuff this year, and Jeremy and I talked to Amber Sherrill about this, and we had a bunch of different ideas. And so essentially, and Jeremy sort of hit upon it, besides the mayor's office and that direct connection to the city's lobbyist, the lobbyist works for the mayor. So that's where we're heading that direction. He also went to basically the planning and housing, I can't remember their name, division with Montana. And so those administrative folks also have a notion of what's going on and maybe appropriately need to act. And then the one we really added was running it through Amber so it gets directly to city council, and a couple of things could result from that. One is just it's on, you put it on the consent agenda that we support these, which then also goes back to the mayor's office, and so they end up taking action. The city council can also write letters and make contacts under the city's formal governance purviews to legislators, and that information then is also cast about because people watch the city council meeting on YouTube, and they read the results of the meetings and the minutes, and so it also helps in the raising general public awareness. And so that was the focus that we added was going through the city council, through Amber to the city council, and trying to get their involvement. We didn't talk a whole lot about general public outreach. That was originally on our list, and we just we talked about making an MCAT video. We're doing some other things, and I don't think we're quite prepared to do that considering the level of effort. So we thought these three approaches that we're taking that Jeremy discussed were probably the best way to go forward in terms of getting the right folks who can address the issue. I'll also say one of the things this does is right now is there's those people here on this meeting. There's the folks on the team. I can't lobby as the chair of this board. It's not. I can lobby a city council person, but I can't go lobby at the state. That would be not within the bounds of my authority. But I personally, Chris Rowe, can send in letters, emails, make calls to state legislatures. So all of you feel free to take, this really granular, detailed research and hit upon, the chairmen of the committees. These are in the chair people, the members of the committees they're in. Sometimes it doesn't always help to send it to your own legislator because, we're in Missoula and they're going to generally be the same way you think. But target the folks within the committees or the bill sponsors. So anyways, anyone can do that, no problem. Jeremy or Michael, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, if anybody is interested in providing public comment to the committee or to the committee members or the leaders of the committee, as Chris mentioned, don't hesitate to let me know because I can put you in touch with some good resources that help educate about the process of submitting written comments or speaking remotely via Zoom. The Montana legislature has a system so that you don't have to be physically present in Helena. You can provide comments via Zoom. So let me know if anybody wants to talk further about that.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, all right. And next up, continued discussion on proposed housing projects and addressing the city's carbon neutrality goals. And we talked about this last time. Dave offered an organization and a name, as I think Brian did too, Homeward, and bringing them in and talking with them. And I kind of dropped that one, but I will put it back on my list to try to get them at the next meeting. I think in order for us to make any meaningful forward progress on whether all these 4 or 5 affordable housing efforts that are moving from large scale efforts that are moving forward, whether or maybe they already are addressing carbon neutrality, energy conservation, renewable energy, or not, or if they aren't, what are mechanisms to get that to happen? It might depend on where the funding source is, or financial savings, or tax breaks for the developers. There's a whole lot of ways in which these units could become more efficient, or provide renewable energy for their occupants without costing additional funds. But right now, the city, and for good reason, is focused on just getting these units built. And we're talking hundreds and hundreds, probably in the next 5-6 years, 1,000 or more low-income housing units, some for sales, most for rent, but some apartments, some houses. It's a huge range of things. Dave talked last time about our carbon, the Climate Smart Missoula's carbon footprint project. And so, Dave, can I put that on you to talk about that at the next meeting? No, you're going to be gone. You're going to be in Utah. Yeah. Can you take us to Utah with you?
Sure. We'll have to offset a lot of driving.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'll pay for some carbon offsets, some gasoline wrecks or something.
Yeah. No, I'll just put out there on that subject that Homeward is a great organization, quite dedicated toward efficiency and climate issues. So they really want to do the right thing, and hopefully this the Footprint Fund with Climate Smart Missoula will be helping sort of bridge the gaps towards more efficient installations of heating and cooling and windows and all those building measures that will increase our efficiency for 50 years. So yeah, we'll keep you updated on that. And if anyone's curious, just give Climate Smart a call, and they can tell you more about the program. And if you have ideas for projects, or you hear of projects that are going on that might benefit from a program like that, or if you know some business or institution who would like to offset their carbon emissions, then you can sort of give that tip into Climate Smart as well.
And as we talked about it some meetings ago, and there was an article in the paper, there was a low-income housing subdivision out off Mullen. I think it was about a 20-unit subdivision where they were going to just put in a standard building or a unit-by-unit furnace system, some sort of forced air or electric baseboard. And through the carbon footprint program, through Climate Smart Missoula, they got money from Clearwater Federal Credit Union, or Clearwater Credit Union, to help pay for the increased cost of putting in electric or ground source heat pumps. So highly more efficient, longer lasting, cheaper for the residents, but they needed just some extra kick of money to make that affordable, because it was going to cost more than just putting in the real basic forced air that they would have put in otherwise. Does that sound right, David?
Yep, that's just right. I think they're air source heat pumps, but
okay.
Yeah, and that's kind of the first pilot project that the Footprint Fund has done, and we're hoping to do more similar to that.
All right, so maybe at the next meeting, maybe we can get both. We can get somebody from Climate Smart Missoula and someone from Homeward, and spend some time getting up to speed on what it means to move forward on some of these public priority projects and looking at energy efficiency and renewable energy. Any other comments on that particular item?
I'll just say I appreciate bringing them in and the focus of this discussion. We're all seeing it. The shotgun blast that's going to happen with the need for housing in the next 5 to 10 years in this community, and I think it's so easy, at least in other communities, to fall into that trap of we need to get it built fast, waive regulations, just get the stuff built, because people need homes to live in here, as we know. But to flip the switch on that and to use it as an opportunity instead of an opportunity to implement green. The houses have to be built, so let's do it right. So not a ton to add, other than I just really appreciate the idea to bring these people in, because I think it's important for this board.
Sounds good. Hey, Brian, what do you got?
I just wanted to ask Dave, those air source heat pumps, were they mini splits?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay, are you going to tell us what that means?
Basically it's an air source heat pump, but what they do is they separate the exterior unit from the interior air handlers that actually do the heating or cooling inside the building. But obviously the air source, you're moving heat in or out of the house via the compressor on the outside of the house. So you're just splitting those two things rather than having them in one place. That's why it's called a mini split.
Gotcha. Kind of like your air conditioner and then your forced air inside, your air conditioner outside.
Kind of, except those are separate systems, right? So this is one system, and you actually can do heating or cooling with the same system, and it's much more efficient than electric resistance heating or traditional compressor-based air conditioning. So it's because you're essentially using it to move heat in or out versus heat or cool the air that's inside the house directly.
Right. Yeah. So you're taking advantage of where things are either cooler or warmer and moving the air from one side of that barrier, the wall, to the other, depending on which advantage you're trying to take.
It's it's strangely hard to understand, and I'm not very good at explaining it. So you should look online. There are actually diagrams that kind of show this. Then I can explain it.
All righty, sounds good. Thank you. All righty, we're getting down there. The next steps in the youth team member onboarding process. So Michael has been taking the lead on that. Michael, do you have any next steps? I know you had our list. What are some of the next steps we're considering?
Sure. So if you guys are okay with that list that I sent along, I wanted to reach out to the kids, give them some more reading materials, coordinate on that time for the meeting to see if we can delve into making it more convenient for them to attend. And then if it's also looking at if it's an issue for the teachers that they're missing a specific learning event, that could we make up for that with this meeting? Could we find some way to make a reciprocal assignment or a project that would allow for that same information to be covered with our team if it turns out that we can't move the meeting time outside of their school day? And then also just working with you on getting them question and answers about how meetings went, and then looking at asking different team members if they wanted to be mentors, so that each student would have a specific person on the team they could reach out to and kind of guide them through the process, or if they had questions or concerns, and then also give them a resource if they're having problems with anything.
All right. Yeah, and then I was also going to do at least another session or two on the next one would be on all the various policies, regulations, and plans that we're following within the city. And then probably another one after that as well, if that's useful. All right, thank you, Michael. Any comments? So right now from the youth team members on anything you guys are looking that you might want or need to help you do your job better here? Virgil?
That definitely sounds really good. I definitely think that the timing could be changed, and as long as it would work for you guys. But then also, if you can't end up changing the time, then I really like that idea of having some sort of makeup, like just doing an assignment during this, kind of to make up for what we're missing. I think that's a good solution.
Excellent. Yeah. All right. Any other youth team members? All right. We'll be reaching out by email as well. So, the next one is discussion on the city's energy conservation program. And so one of the things that Jeremy has been reaching out to Montana James about, you know, the legislative stuff, but we've also been talking about that program, Charlotte Fisk, and then whoever replaces Chase, and how we're best going to coordinate and what we're going to coordinate on. So we don't really have time to get into it now, but we'll put this on for next time. But you know, there's the things that they do, and there's the things that we do, and then there's the things that overlap. And what we're trying to do is figure those out and more concretely document those for both sides, and trying to get that established. Whereas before it was kind of squirrely, you know, what we would help Chase with or vice versa. And we really need to get this more formalized. And so that's really why that's there. But we're gonna put it off. But if anybody wants to make this a priority, just let me know, because it probably means some discussions with Montana James and maybe Charlotte Fisk to talk about those things. Federal building, I got a note to Amber right now. I haven't heard anything back. So we've got exactly 2 minutes for team member comments.
Hey,
Good job.
Thanks. Yeah, Dave.
Hey, I was just going to say quickly, I'm really excited to have the youth team members with us. And I just want to make sure you know that I will certainly be available to help with anything you need. And that goes like beyond this meeting stuff, because one of the really valuable parts of doing something like this is being connected with folks who have a lot of experience and expertise. And we want to make sure that we can help you out however you need it. Like basically every job in every school I've ever gotten into, I had connections that helped me get those things. And so I want to be part of your network to help you go forward and do the great things that you have ahead of you. So just keep that in mind and make sure you reach out if you have any questions, or if there's anything you're applying for, if you need references, anything like that, you know, please let us know.
Thanks for the offer, Dave. Hey, Michael?
Yeah, Grace, just real quick. I know a couple years ago we had a preliminary discussion about this, but I was going to email you if you were interested, some career opportunities for what you're talking about with international relations and environment. So, if you're okay with that, I'll email that stuff to you and we can have a conversation about that.
Yes, thank you so much. That'd be great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
There you go. It's happening.
Oh, another full meeting. Thanks everybody for all your great thoughts and participation. I'll just put a little poke out there that remember we all got to work offline as well as at the meetings, and so be ready to roll up your sleeves from time to time. And I do appreciate all of the efforts that everybody is putting in, very much so. So with that, I move to adjourn our meeting. Second, or next time, Virgil. All right, so we don't need to vote on that, but so we're adjourned, and we'll all be in touch, and we'll see you next month.
Take care, everybody.
See you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Well.